Welcome to today's deep dive into one of the most dramatic and emotionally charged stories to ever come out of the 90-day Fiance universe. This is not just a tale of love, but of culture, family, betrayal, and the painful price of choosing between tradition and independence. At the center of it all are Jenny Slatten, an American woman who dared to follow her heart across the world, and Sumit Singh, an Indian man torn between his love for Jenny and the unshakable expectations of his family. Jenny Slatten and her husband Sumit Singh had been trapped in family conflict for a long time. Sumit's parents never fully accepted Jenny. They always wanted Sumit to marry a younger Indian woman, start a proper family, have children, and continue the bloodline. After repeatedly hearing this from Sumit's parents, Jenny Slatten became emotionally broken. Jenny wants an independent life. Sumit wants to protect family tradition. Jenny says, "I don't want to live under anyone's control." But Sumit says, "This is our culture. We must take care of our parents." Because of this clash and the constant family drama, they decided to separate. In the end, their 4-year relationship ended due to family pressure. On October 18, their divorce was finalized in court. And after that, Sumit Singh, hoping to build a new life and considering his parents' wishes, married an Indian woman. But the story doesn't end there. Jenny Slatten then filed a case against Sumit Singh in court. She claimed that Sumit Singh had borrowed $50,000 from her and never paid it back. Based on that claim, the court launched an investigation, and Jenny Slatten's allegation was proven to be true. As a result, the court ordered Sumit Singh to pay a $60,000 penalty. This isn't just reality TV anymore. This is real life, real heartbreak, real consequences. So grab your seat, because this story is about to take you on a roller coaster of emotions, love, betrayal, tradition, and justice. Let's begin. Every great story starts with a spark. And for Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh, that spark came in the most unexpected way. Jenny, a woman from Palm Springs, California, had lived a fairly ordinary life. She was divorced, her children were grown, and she was searching for companionship in her later years. Like many, she turned to the internet, where borders blur and love stories are born in the most unlikely places. That's where she met Sumit Singh. Sumit was younger, charming, and full of energy. He lived in India, a world away from Jenny's quiet American life. At first, their connection seemed impossible. The age gap was significant, the cultural differences were vast, and the distance was overwhelming. But love doesn't always follow logic. Their online conversations grew deeper. Jenny found in Sumit a sense of excitement and warmth she hadn't felt in years. Sumit, in turn, was drawn to Jenny's kindness, her openness, and her willingness to embrace him for who he was. When Jenny decided to travel to India to meet Sumit, it wasn't just a vacation, it was a leap of faith. She left behind the comfort of her familiar world to step into a culture she barely understood, all for the chance at love. The first meeting was magical. Cameras captured the nervous smiles, the hugs, the tears of joy. For Jenny, it felt like destiny. For Sumit, it was the beginning of a dream he never thought possible. But even in those early days, shadows loomed. Jenny was aware of the whispers, the doubts from friends and family back home. He's too young. He just wants a visa. This will never work. And in India, the whispers were louder. Sumit's parents had no idea about Jenny, and when they eventually found out, their reaction was explosive. To them, Jenny wasn't just the wrong woman. She was a symbol of everything they feared: a foreigner, an older woman, someone who could never give them grandchildren. Still, Jenny and Sumit pressed forward. They believed their love was strong enough to overcome the odds. They laughed together, cooked together, and dreamed of a future where they could live freely, without judgment. Love may be blind, but culture has a way of opening eyes, sometimes painfully. For Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh, the first real test of their relationship wasn't distance or age, but the invisible wall of tradition that stood between them and Sumit's family. In India, family is not just important, it is everything. Parents are not simply respected, they are obeyed. Their wishes carry the weight of destiny, and for many sons, the idea of defying them is unthinkable. Sumit knew this truth all too well. When his parents discovered Jenny, their reaction was nothing short of explosive. To them, she was not just an unsuitable partner, she was a threat to the very fabric of their family's honor. Jenny was older, foreign, and unable to give them the grandchildren they longed for. In their eyes, she represented the end of their bloodline. The conversations were brutal. Sumit's parents told him, again and again, that his duty was to marry a young Indian woman, someone who could carry forward the family name and traditions. They reminded him of the sacrifices they had made raising him, the expectations of the community, and the shame they would endure if he chose Jenny. For Jenny, these confrontations were devastating. She had left behind her entire life in America to be with Sumit, only to find herself treated as an outsider in his home. She wasn't just unwelcome, she was invisible, dismissed as if her love didn't matter. But Jenny wasn't one to back down easily. She tried to win them over with kindness, patience, and respect. She learned bits of Hindi, embraced Indian customs, and did her best to show that her love for Sumit was genuine. Yet no matter how hard she tried, the wall never came down. The tension began to seep into their daily lives. Family dinners turned into battlegrounds. Every phone call from Sumit's parents carried a new demand, a new reminder that Jenny would never be enough. And slowly, the joy that once defined their relationship began to fade under the weight of constant disapproval. Sumit was caught in the middle. On one side was Jenny, the woman he loved, who wanted nothing more than to live freely with him. On the other side were his parents, whose approval he had craved his entire life. The pressure was suffocating. Jenny, meanwhile, began to feel the cracks in her dream. She had imagined a life of love and adventure in India, but instead, she found herself in a war she never signed up for. The whispers of doubt grew louder. Was she ruining Sumit's life? Was she selfish for holding on? The cameras captured it all. The tears, the arguments, the moments of silence where love seemed to be slipping through their fingers. What began as a fairy tale was quickly becoming a cautionary tale about the collision of love and tradition. And yet, despite the storm, Jenny and Sumit held on. They believed, perhaps naively, that love could conquer all. But now, I will tell you, the struggle for acceptance was only just beginning, and the cost of defiance would be higher than either of them ever imagined. For Jenny Slatton, love was supposed to be her safe haven. She had crossed oceans, left behind her family, and embraced a new culture for the man she loved. But instead of finding peace, she found herself in a constant battle, not with Sumit, but with the world around him. The resistance from Sumit's parents was relentless. Every time Jenny thought she had made progress, another wall went up. She tried everything, learning Indian customs, cooking traditional meals, even dressing in local attire to show respect. But no matter how much she adapted, she was never truly accepted. The age gap was the weapon Sumit's parents wielded most often. They reminded him that Jenny was old enough to be his mother, that she could never give them grandchildren, that she would never fit into the role of a traditional Indian wife. For them, Jenny wasn't just the wrong choice. She was a humiliation. Jenny, however, refused to give up. She believed that love was enough, that if she and Sumit stood strong together, eventually his parents would see the truth. She poured her heart into proving her worth, not just to Sumit, but to his entire family. Yet, the more she tried, the more invisible she felt. The community around them added fuel to the fire. Neighbors whispered, relatives judged, and every social gathering became a reminder that Jenny was an outsider. For Sumit, the pressure was unbearable. He loved Jenny deeply, but he also loved his parents. He wanted both worlds to coexist, but the reality was that they were tearing him apart. The cameras captured moments of raw vulnerability. Jenny crying alone in her room, questioning whether she had made a mistake. Sumit sitting in silence, torn between his heart and his heritage. Their love story, once filled with laughter and hope, was now overshadowed by constant tension. And yet, through it all, Jenny held on. She told herself that every great love story faced obstacles, that this was just another test of their bond. She believed that if she endured the pain long enough, acceptance would come. But deep down, cracks were forming. Jenny began to feel the weight of sacrifice. She had given up her life in America, her independence, her comfort, all for a love that seemed to demand more from her every day. And Sumit, though devoted, began to show signs of exhaustion. The endless tug-of-war between his parents and Jenny was draining him, leaving him caught in a cycle of guilt and obligation. The struggle for acceptance wasn't just about family approval anymore. It was about identity, about belonging, about whether love could survive when the world refused to recognize it. By this point, Jenny and Sumit weren't just fighting for their relationship, they were fighting for their very right to exist as a couple. And as the pressure mounted, the question became clear. How long could they keep fighting before something finally broke? For Jenny Slatton, love was never meant to feel like a cage. She had left behind her life in America with the dream of freedom. Freedom to love openly, to live authentically, and to finally find happiness after years of loneliness. But in India, she discovered that her new life came with invisible chains. Every day, she felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her. Sumit's parents demanded obedience. The community whispered about her age. Even Sumit, the man she had crossed oceans for, seemed torn between protecting her and protecting his family's honor. Jenny began to feel suffocated. She had always been a strong-willed woman, someone who valued her independence. Back in California, she had lived life on her own terms. But here, in a culture where family decisions often outweighed personal desires, she felt powerless. The breaking point came during one of the many heated arguments with Sumit's parents. Jenny, exhausted from years of trying to prove herself, finally snapped. With tears in her eyes, she told them, "I don't want to live under anyone's control. I came here for love, not to be treated like a prisoner." Those words echoed like thunder. For Jenny, it was a declaration of war, not against Sumit, but against the system that refused to see her as worthy. She wanted to reclaim her voice, her dignity, and her right to live freely. But independence came at a cost. Her defiance only deepened the rift with Sumit's family. They saw her refusal to conform as arrogance, as disrespect. To them, Jenny wasn't just rejecting tradition, she was rejecting them. Sumit, caught in the middle, tried to calm the storm. He begged Jenny to be patient, to understand that change in India didn't happen overnight. But Jenny had already sacrificed so much. She had given up her home, her comfort, her identity, and still, she was treated as an outsider. The more she fought for independence, the more isolated she became. Friends back home urged her to return, to stop wasting her life on a man whose family would never accept her. But Jenny wasn't ready to give up. She loved Sumit deeply, and she believed that if she stood her ground, he would eventually choose her fully. Her fight for independence wasn't just about love anymore. It was about proving to herself and to the world that she deserved respect. That her age, her nationality, her differences didn't make her less of a partner. The cameras captured her transformation. No longer the quiet, hopeful woman who had arrived in India with stars in her eyes, Jenny became a fighter. She spoke with conviction, she demanded fairness, and she refused to be silenced. But independence is a double-edged sword. While Jenny grew stronger, the distance between her and Sumit's family grew wider, and with every battle she fought, the question loomed larger. Could their love survive when the very foundation of their worlds was so different? For Sumit Singh, love was never the only force shaping his decisions. In India, family is not just a part of life. It is the foundation of identity. From the moment he was born, Sumit was raised with the understanding that his duty was to his parents first, and everything else came second. This sense of obligation ran deep. His parents had sacrificed for him, guided him, and expected that one day he would repay them by carrying forward the family name. To them, that meant marrying a younger Indian woman, having children, and ensuring that the Singh bloodline continued. Anything less was seen as betrayal. Sumit loved Jenny, but he also loved his parents, and in his heart, he believed that honoring tradition was not optional, it was sacred. He'd often told Jenny, "This is our culture. "We must take care of our parents. It is our responsibility." Those words, though spoken with sincerity, cut Jenny deeply. To her, love was about freedom, equality, and partnership. To Sumit, love could not exist without duty, sacrifice, and respect for family. Their definitions of love were colliding, and neither could bend without breaking. The cameras captured Sumit's inner turmoil. He would sit quietly after arguments, his face heavy with guilt. On one side was Jenny, the woman who had given up everything to be with him. On the other side were his parents, who reminded him daily of his obligations. He was torn between two worlds, and no matter what choice he made, someone would be hurt. Sumit's loyalty to tradition wasn't just about his parents, it was about his identity. In India, a man who defies his family risks more than disapproval. He risks shame, isolation, and the loss of community. Sumit feared that if he chose Jenny fully, he would be cast out, left without the support of the very people who had raised him. Jenny, however, saw things differently. To her, love should be enough. She couldn't understand why Sumit's devotion to tradition outweighed his devotion to her. She wanted him to stand up, to fight for their relationship, to prove that their love mattered more than outdated expectations. But Sumit's heart was divided. He wanted to protect Jenny, but he also wanted to protect his parents. He wanted to live freely, but he also wanted to honor his culture. And in trying to balance both, he found himself sinking deeper into conflict. The more Jenny pushed for independence, the more Sumit clung to tradition. It was as if they were standing on opposite sides of a river, each calling for the other to cross, but neither willing to let go of their ground. This clash wasn't just about marriage, it was about the very essence of who they were. Jenny represented freedom, choice, and individuality. Sumit represented duty, tradition, and family honor. And as the tension grew, it became clear that their love story was heading toward a breaking point. Now, I will tell you, Jenny's fight for independence versus Sumit's loyalty to tradition finally erupted into open conflict, pushing their relationship to the edge of collapse. Every love story has its limits, and for Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh, those limits were tested again and again by the relentless storm of family drama. What began as whispers of disapproval soon grew into a constant roar that neither of them could escape. The tension was everywhere. At family gatherings, Jenny was treated like an intruder. At home, phone calls from Sumit's parents turned into interrogations. Even in public, the couple felt the weight of judgmental stares. Their relationship was no longer just about two people in love. It had become a battlefield where tradition and independence clashed daily. Jenny, who had once been patient and hopeful, began to unravel under the pressure. She had sacrificed everything to be with Sumit, yet she was constantly reminded that she didn't belong. The emotional toll was heavy. Nights were filled with tears, arguments, and long silences where words failed them both. Sumit, meanwhile, was drowning in guilt. He wanted to protect Jenny, but he also couldn't bear the thought of losing his parents' approval. Every decision he made seemed to hurt someone he loved. If he sided with Jenny, his parents accused him of betrayal. If he sided with his parents, Jenny felt abandoned. It was a cycle with no escape. The cameras captured the rawest moments. Jenny pleading with Sumit to stand up for her. Sumit begging Jenny to be patient, and both of them collapsing under the weight of expectations they could never meet. The breaking point came during one particularly heated confrontation. Sumit's parents, frustrated by years of resistance, delivered an ultimatum. "If you stay with Jenny, you are no longer our son." Those words shattered the fragile balance they had been trying to maintain. For Jenny, it was confirmation of what she had feared all along, that she would never be accepted, no matter how much she tried. For Sumit, it was the cruelest choice imaginable: love or family, freedom or tradition. The fallout was immediate. Arguments between Jenny and Sumit grew more intense. Jenny accused him of being weak, of choosing his parents over her. Sumit accused her of not understanding his culture, of pushing him into an impossible position. Their once tender love story had turned into a war of words, each side fighting for survival. The emotional exhaustion was visible. Jenny's face carried the weight of heartbreak, while Sumit's eyes revealed the torment of a man torn in two. They were no longer partners against the world. They had become opponents, each demanding something the other could not give. And so, after years of trying, of hoping, of believing that love could conquer all, the truth became undeniable. The family drama had won. The relationship that had once defied borders and expectations was now crumbling under the very pressures they had fought so hard to resist. In the next chapter, we'll witness the devastating moment when Jenny and Sumit finally made the decision that neither of them wanted, the decision to end their relationship and walk away from the love they had sacrificed so much to protect. Every love story has a climax, the moment when hope either triumphs or collapses. For Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh, that moment came in the form of a courtroom, where years of love, sacrifice, and struggle finally unraveled. The decision to divorce was not made overnight. It was the result of years of battles with family, with culture, and with each other. By the time they reached the courthouse, Jenny and Sumit were no longer the starry-eyed couple who had once believed love could conquer all. They were weary soldiers, scarred by endless conflict. The final straw had been the ultimatum from Sumit's parents: choose us or lose us. For Sumit, the pressure was unbearable. He had tried to balance both worlds, but the weight of tradition proved too heavy. Jenny, meanwhile, had grown tired of waiting for a miracle that never came. She wanted freedom, respect, and a life where she wasn't constantly fighting for her place. On October 18, the gavel came down. Their divorce was finalized. The courtroom was silent, but the silence carried the weight of heartbreak. Jenny sat with tears in her eyes, her face a mixture of grief and relief. She had fought so hard for this love, but in the end, she had to let it go. Sumit, on the other hand, looked broken, torn between the woman he loved and the family he could never abandon. For fans of 90 Day Fiance, the news was shocking. Viewers had watched their journey unfold for years, rooting for them through every obstacle. To see it end in divorce felt like the end of an era. Social media exploded with reactions. Some sympathized with Jenny, praising her strength, while others defended Sumit, arguing that he had no choice but to honor his parents. But behind the headlines and the gossip, the reality was far more painful. Jenny returned to a life of solitude, questioning whether her sacrifices had been worth it. She had given up everything: her home, her comfort, her independence, only to end up alone. Sumit, meanwhile, faced the bittersweet reality of fulfilling his parents' wishes but losing the woman who had once been his entire world. The divorce wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the collapse of a dream. The dream that love could bridge cultures, erase age gaps, and silence the voices of tradition. For Jenny and Sumit, that dream had been their guiding light. Now, it was gone. And yet, even in the ashes of their marriage, the story was far from over. Because while Sumit moved forward with a new marriage, one that aligned with his parents' expectations, Jenny was not ready to fade quietly into the background. She carried with her not only heartbreak, but also a sense of betrayal that would soon ignite a new battle. The divorce may have ended their love story, but it was only the beginning of a much larger war, one that would play out in courtrooms, in headlines, and in the hearts of fans around the world. Now, I will tell you how Sumit's attempt to rebuild his life with a new wife collided with the lingering shadow of his past, and how Jenny's heartbreak transformed into determination for justice. For Sumit Singh, the divorce from Jenny Slatten was supposed to bring clarity. The years of conflict, the endless tug-of-war between love and family, had finally reached their conclusion. On paper, he was free. Free from the arguments, free from the judgment, free from the impossible balancing act that had defined his life. But freedom, as Sumit soon discovered, came with its own price. Almost immediately after the divorce, his parents began to push him toward what they had always wanted: a proper marriage. They introduced him to a younger Indian woman, someone who fit neatly into the mold of tradition, youthful, from a respected family, and capable of giving them the grandchildren they longed for. For Sumit, The decision was less about romance and more about duty. He had spent years defying his parents, and the cost had been unbearable. Now, with Jenny gone, he felt the weight of obligation heavier than ever. To refuse again would mean permanent estrangement. To accept meant finally earning back his parents' approval. And so Sumit agreed. The wedding was everything his parents had dreamed of. Colorful, traditional, filled with music, laughter, and blessings. To the outside world, it looked like a happy ending. Sumit was finally fulfilling his role as a dutiful son, and his parents beamed with pride. The community, once critical of his relationship with Jenny, now embraced him again. But behind the smiles and rituals, Sumit's heart was conflicted. He had loved Jenny deeply, and though their relationship had ended, the memories lingered. Every ritual, every vow he made to his new wife, carried the shadow of the woman he had once promised forever to. The cameras didn't capture this wedding. It wasn't part of the 90-day Fiance storyline. But whispers spread quickly. Fans who had followed his journey with Jenny were stunned. Social media lit up with debates. Had Sumit betrayed Jenny, or was he simply doing what he had to do? Was this marriage a fresh start, or just another set of chains binding him to tradition? Jenny, watching from afar, was devastated. Though she had agreed to the divorce, seeing Sumit move on so quickly, and in the exact way his parents had always demanded, felt like a betrayal. To her, it was proof that all her sacrifices had been in vain. She had fought for years to be accepted, only to be replaced by someone who fit the mold she never could. For Sumit, the marriage brought temporary peace. His parents were satisfied, the community approved, and for the first time in years, he wasn't caught in the middle of a war. But peace built on compromise is fragile. Deep inside, he knew he had chosen tradition over love, duty over freedom, and that choice would haunt him. Because while Sumit was trying to build a new life, Jenny was preparing for a battle of her own. She wasn't just heartbroken, she was angry. Angry at the years she had given, angry at the sacrifices she had made, and most of all, angry at the betrayal she felt when Sumit walked away without looking back. And soon, that anger would take shape in the form of a lawsuit. One that would drag their story back into the spotlight and force the world to confront the messy truth about love, money, and betrayal. Now, I will tell you how Jenny's heartbreak transformed into determination and how her fight for justice would ignite a courtroom battle that shocked everyone. For Jenny Slaton, the divorce was supposed to be the end of her suffering. After years of fighting for acceptance, after sacrificing her comfort, her independence, and her dignity, she thought that walking away would finally bring peace. But peace never came. Instead, what followed was heartbreak, a deep, gnawing pain that seemed to shadow her every step. She had given 4 years of her life to Sumit Singh, believing in a love that could withstand anything. And yet, in the end, she was left with nothing but memories and regret. Jenny returned to her quiet routines, but the silence was unbearable. Every corner of her home reminded her of the sacrifices she had made. Every news headline about Sumit's new marriage felt like salt in an open wound. She had fought so hard to be seen, only to be replaced by someone who fit the mold she never could. But Jenny was not the kind of woman who stayed broken for long. Beneath the grief, a fire began to burn. She replayed the years in her mind, the promises Sumit had made, the assurances that they would build a life together, the countless times she had supported him financially and emotionally. And then, one memory stood out above the rest: the money. Jenny remembered the $50,000 she had given Sumit over the course of their relationship. At the time, it hadn't felt like a loan. It had felt like love, an investment in their future together. But now, with the relationship over and Sumit moving on with a new wife, Jenny realized the truth. She had been left with nothing, and he had walked away with everything. The heartbreak transformed into determination. Jenny decided she would not be silent, she would not be forgotten, and she would not allow herself to be taken advantage of. If love had failed her, then justice would be her weapon. She contacted a lawyer, gathering every piece of evidence she could find: bank transfers, messages, and records of the money she had given Sumit. What had once been private moments of trust now became ammunition in a legal battle. Jenny was no longer just the heartbroken ex-wife. She was a woman on a mission. Filing the case was not easy. It meant reopening wounds, reliving the pain, and dragging her personal life back into the public eye. But Jenny was ready. She had spent too long being dismissed, too long being treated as if her sacrifices didn't matter. This time, she would make sure her voice was heard. The lawsuit sent shockwaves through the 90-day Fiance community. Fans who had once pitied Jenny now rallied behind her, praising her courage to stand up for herself. Others criticized her, accusing her of revenge. But Jenny didn't care about opinions anymore. This wasn't about television or gossip. It was about reclaiming her dignity. For Sumit, the lawsuit was a nightmare. Just as he was settling into his new marriage, the past came roaring back to haunt him. The man who had once been celebrated for following his heart was now being accused of betrayal, deceit, and financial exploitation. Jenny's heartbreak had given birth to determination, and that determination would soon lead to a courtroom showdown that neither of them could escape. Now, I will tell you where love, money, and betrayal collided in a battle that would decide not only their futures, but also their legacies. The divorce may have ended Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh's marriage, but it did not end their story. In fact, what came next was even more explosive. Love had failed them, but now money, and the betrayal tied to it, would drag them back into each other's lives in the harshest way possible. A courtroom battle. Jenny had spent months replaying her years with Sumit. Every sacrifice, every compromise, every tear shed in the name of love. But one detail refused to fade from her memory: the $50,000 she had given him. At the time, it had been framed as support, money to help them build a future together, to cover expenses, to ease the struggles of their unconventional life. But now, with Sumit remarried and moving on, Jenny saw it differently. To her, it wasn't just money. It was trust, and that trust had been broken. Fueled by heartbreak and determination, Jenny filed a lawsuit. She claimed that Sumit had borrowed the money under the promise of repayment, a promise he never fulfilled. The case quickly gained traction, not only because of the amount involved, but because of who they were. This wasn't just any couple. This was a pair whose love story had played out on international television. Now, their private financial disputes were about to become public spectacle. The courtroom was tense on the first day of hearings. Jenny arrived with her lawyer, carrying folders of evidence, bank transfers, messages, and records that painted a picture of financial dependency. Sumit, sitting across from her, looked uneasy. He had faced his parents' wrath, the judgment of society, and the heartbreak of divorce. But this was different. This was about his integrity, his reputation, and his future. Jenny's lawyer argued passionately. He painted Jenny as a woman who had been missold, who had given her heart and her money in good faith, only to be abandoned. He emphasized the sacrifices she had made, the years she had invested, and the betrayal she felt when Sumit walked away without honoring his commitments. Sumit's defense, however, told a different story. His lawyer claimed the money was never a loan, but a gift. A gesture of love freely given, with no expectation of repayment. To frame it as debt, they argued, was nothing more than revenge, a way for Jenny to punish Sumit for moving on. The testimonies were emotional. Jenny spoke through tears, recalling the countless times she had supported Sumit financially, believing they were building a shared future. Sumit, in turn, insisted he had never asked for repayment, that Jenny had given willingly, and that he had never intended to deceive her. The media swarmed the case, turning it into a spectacle. Headlines screamed of betrayal, greed, and heartbreak. Fans of 90 Day Fiance debated fiercely online. Was Jenny seeking justice, or was she bitter? Was Sumit a manipulator, or simply a man caught in the fallout of a failed relationship? But beyond the noise, the truth was left for the court to decide. And as the hearings dragged on, the evidence began to weigh heavily in Jenny's favor. The transfers, the messages, the context, all pointed to a financial arrangement that went beyond simple gifts. The courtroom battle was more than just a legal fight. It was the final chapter of their love story, rewritten in the language of betrayal and justice. For Jenny, it was about reclaiming her dignity. For Sumit, it was about defending his honor. And for the world watching, it was a reminder that even the most passionate love stories can end not with a kiss, but with a gavel. The courtroom was silent as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. Months of hearings, endless testimonies, and a flood of evidence had all led to this moment. For Jenny Slatten, it was more than just a legal decision. It was the culmination of years of sacrifice, heartbreak, and betrayal. For Sumit Singh, it was the reckoning he had hoped to avoid. The case had gripped not only the courtroom, but also the public. Fans of 90 Day Fiance followed every update, dissecting each piece of evidence, each statement, each tear shed on the witness stand. The world had watched Jenny and Sumit fall in love, fight for acceptance, and ultimately divorce. Now, they were watching the final chapter of their story unfold in the harsh light of justice. Jenny's lawyers had built a strong case. They presented bank transfers, messages, and testimony that painted a clear picture. Jenny had given Sumit $50,000 under the belief that it was a loan, a promise for their shared future. The money wasn't a gift, they argued. It was trust. And that trust had been broken when Sumit walked away without repayment. Sumit's defense clung to the narrative that the money was freely given, a gesture of love with no strings attached. But as the evidence piled up, that argument began to crumble. The judge listened carefully, weighing not just the financial details, but the emotional context of their relationship. When the verdict was finally read, the words echoed like thunder. The court finds in favor of Jenny Slatten. Sumit Singh is ordered to repay the $50,000 with an additional $10,000 penalty. Jenny's eyes filled with tears, but this time, they were not tears of heartbreak. They were tears of vindication. For years, she had been dismissed, doubted, and disrespected. Now, in the eyes of the law, her sacrifices were acknowledged, her pain validated. She had fought not just for money, but for dignity, and she had won. Sumit sat in silence, his face pale. The man who had once been celebrated for following his heart was now branded by the court as someone who had betrayed trust. His new marriage, his attempt to rebuild his life, was now overshadowed by the weight of the judgment. The financial blow was heavy, but the damage to his reputation was even heavier. The media erupted. Headlines screamed, "Justice for Jenny," and Sumit ordered to pay $60,000 in court battle. Social media lit up with reactions. Fans praised Jenny's courage, calling her a symbol of strength for women who had been wronged. Others criticized Sumit, accusing him of manipulation and deceit. The verdict didn't just settle a legal dispute, it reshaped the narrative of their entire relationship. For Jenny, the victory was bittersweet. No amount of money could erase the years of pain, the sacrifices she had made, or the love she had lost. But the verdict gave her something she had long been denied: closure. She could finally move forward, knowing that her voice had been heard and her truth recognized. For Sumit, the verdict was a reminder that choices have consequences. He had chosen tradition over love, duty over freedom, and in doing so, he had lost not only Jenny, but also the respect of many who once admired him. The gavel had fallen, the judgment delivered. But even as the courtroom emptied, one question lingered: what comes after justice? The gavel had fallen, the verdict delivered. Jenny Slatten had won her case, and Sumit Singh was ordered to repay $50,000 plus a $10,000 penalty. But while the courtroom battle was over, the storm outside was only just beginning. The media wasted no time. Within hours, headlines blazed across entertainment outlets. Justice for Jenny. Court rules against Sumit Singh. 90 Day Fiance star ordered to pay $60,000. From love to lawsuit. The Jenny and Sumit saga. News anchors dissected the case, legal experts weighed in, and talk shows debated whether Jenny's victory was a triumph of justice or an act of revenge. The story wasn't just about money anymore. It had become a cultural flashpoint, a symbol of love gone wrong under the weight of tradition and betrayal. On social media, the frenzy was even louder. Fans who had followed Jennie and Sumit's journey from the beginning flooded Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook with their reactions. Hashtags like Justice for Jennie and Sumit Exposed began trending. Supporters praised Jennie for standing up for herself, calling her a role model for women who had been wronged in relationships. One fan wrote, "Jennie gave everything to that man. She deserves every penny back. This is what accountability looks like." But not everyone agreed. Some defended Sumit, arguing that Jennie had known what she was getting into, that the money was given freely, and that dragging him to court was unnecessary. Others accused her of bitterness, saying she was using the legal system to punish him for moving on. The debate was fierce, and it revealed just how deeply invested the public had become in their story. Jennie and Sumit were no longer just reality TV stars. They were symbols in a larger conversation about love, culture, and justice. For Jennie, the aftermath was bittersweet. She had won, yes, but the victory came with renewed public scrutiny. Every interview request, every headline, every social media post reminded her of the years she had spent fighting for a love that ultimately betrayed her. She wanted closure, but instead, she found herself reliving the pain in the spotlight. Sumit, meanwhile, faced a different kind of fallout. His reputation took a heavy blow. Once seen as a man torn between love and tradition, he was now painted as someone who had exploited his partner. The financial penalty was damaging, but the loss of public sympathy was worse. His new marriage, meant to symbolize a fresh start, was now overshadowed by whispers of deceit and betrayal. The cultural conversation also deepened. In India, where family honor and tradition hold immense weight, the case sparked debates about the balance between duty and personal freedom. In the United States, Jennie's victory was celebrated as a story of empowerment, a woman reclaiming her dignity after years of sacrifice. The frenzy showed no signs of slowing. Documentaries, podcasts, and YouTube channels dissected every detail, turning their saga into a cautionary tale for anyone who believed love could conquer all. But beneath the noise, one truth remained. Both Jennie and Sumit were forever changed. Their names would always be linked, not just by love, but by betrayal, by a courtroom, and by a verdict that echoed far beyond the walls of justice. When the courtroom doors finally closed and the verdict was delivered, Jennie Slatin and Sumit Singh were left standing on opposite sides of a shattered love story. The legal battle had ended, but the echoes of their past continued to follow them. What came next was not just about moving on. It was about survival, reinvention, and the search for peace after years of chaos. For Jennie, the victory in court was a turning point. She had fought for her dignity and won, but the triumph was bittersweet. No amount of money could erase the scars of betrayal or the years she had sacrificed. Still, the judgment gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time: closure. Jennie began to rebuild her life with quiet determination. She returned to the United States for a time, reconnecting with her family and rediscovering the independence she had once cherished. Friends described her as lighter, freer, as though a weight had finally been lifted from her shoulders. She began to share her story more openly, not as a victim, but as a survivor. Interviews, podcasts, and appearances gave her a platform to speak about resilience, about the importance of self-respect, and about the dangers of losing oneself in love. Though she still carried the pain of her past, Jennie refused to let it define her. She traveled, explored new hobbies, and embraced the life she had once put on hold. For the first time in years, she was living on her own terms. Sumit's path, however, was far more complicated. The court's ruling had left him with a financial burden and a tarnished reputation. His new marriage, meant to symbolize a fresh start, was overshadowed by whispers of betrayal and deceit. In the eyes of many, he was no longer the man torn between love and tradition. He was the man who had broken trust and paid the price. Still, Sumit tried to move forward. He leaned heavily on his family, who stood by him despite the scandal. His new wife, though thrust into the spotlight unwillingly, remained by his side, determined to weather the storm with him. Together, they attempted to build a life rooted in tradition, the very thing his parents had always wanted. But even as he embraced this new chapter, the shadow of Jennie lingered. Every headline, every social media debate, every mention of the lawsuit reminded him of the choices he had made. For Sumit, moving on was not about forgetting, it was about learning to live with the consequences. The world, too, had moved on, but not without lessons. Jenny and Sumit's story became more than just reality TV drama. It became a cautionary tale about love, sacrifice, and the clash between personal freedom and cultural obligation. Fans debated endlessly. Was Jenny too independent for a traditional life in India, or was Sumit too bound by duty to ever truly love freely? In the end, both Jenny and Sumit found themselves in new lives, but forever linked by their past. Their story had begun with hope and ended with heartbreak, but it left behind a legacy, one that reminded the world that love, no matter how passionate, cannot survive without trust, respect, and balance. As the dust settled, one truth became clear. Jenny and Sumit had both lost something, but they had also gained something invaluable. Jenny gained her voice. Sumit gained the weight of his choices, and the world gained a story that would be remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. The story of Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh wasn't just a TV romance. It was a fight between love, family, pride, and freedom. For Jenny, the biggest lesson was that love alone is not enough. She gave her time, money, and life to this relationship, but in the end she realized love cannot survive without respect. She refused to live under anyone's control. By walking away, she proved that protecting your dignity is also a kind of victory. For Sumit, the struggle was different, but just as heavy. He tried to keep both, his love and his family. In the end, he chose tradition and his parents' approval. But that choice cost him the person who stood by him through everything. His side of the story shows that duty without balance can destroy trust and leave permanent scars. All the drama, the accusations, even the legal battle, highlighted one thing: trust is the foundation of any relationship. Even when a love story ends, accountability and respect still matter. So their story is bigger than just one couple. It represents many couples around the world whose love is crushed by cultural pressure and family expectations. In the end, their story reminds us, love is powerful, but without trust, respect, and freedom, no relationship can survive. And so, the story of Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh comes to a close, a journey that began with hope, endured years of conflict, and ended in heartbreak, betrayal, and a courtroom verdict that shocked the world. But as the credits roll on their saga, the questions remain. Was their love doomed from the very beginning? Or could it have survived if family and culture hadn't stood in the way? Did Sumit truly betray Jenny? Or was he simply a man trapped between two worlds, torn by love on one side and tradition on the other? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, when love collides with culture, who really wins? The heart that dares to dream, or the traditions that refuse to bend? Jenny and Sumit's story may be over, but the lessons linger. For some, it is a tale of resilience and justice. For others, it is a warning about the dangers of sacrifice without balance. Now, it's your turn to decide. What do you think their story teaches us about love, loyalty, and the price of choosing between freedom and tradition? More update. 90-day Fiance fans fear for Jenny Slatten's health. What's really going on? And real reason why Sumit's family is not accepting Jenny. She embarrassed them. Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatten reveal brand new 90-day Fiance update after begging to return amid signs they have money problems. I will explain everything. Viewers of 90-day Fiance have noticed some disturbing signs that Jenny Slatten is not herself. Major health worries have been aroused by her recent look, and it seems like everything is going her way. It would appear that Jenny is coping with a lot behind the scenes, even if she is carrying the weight of everything. Also, there's more. After much investigation, Jenny's fans have concluded that she is unwell. Is that so? Please tell me what I'm missing. So what exactly did they see? This topic is pretty intense, so you should keep reading to find out more. Even Sumit's parents, who have been worried about 90-day Fiance star Jenny Slatten, think something is wrong with her these days. In a recent episode, Sana, Sumit's mom, wanted to get her daughter-in-law some yoga practice. Jenny, she said, was becoming dangerously overweight and she had to intervene. Jenny was visibly distressed by Sana's derogatory comments about her weight and her insistence that she practice yoga. As they performed a series of yoga postures, the latter even offered Jenny a drink. The dynamics clearly made Slatten feel uneasy. She was even reluctant to swallow the substance Sana gave her. However, things are taking a turn for the worse now. People are now discussing Jenny's health on 90 Day Fiance. The fact that Jenny looked drastically different was recently brought up in a Reddit thread. "I don't think Jenny is functioning as well as she has in past seasons," the original poster said. According to the thread, the plotline actually involved Jenny being very old and fat, which was not humorous. This occurred because it was evident that they were disregarding serious health concerns. The original poster went on to say that Jenny's speech was slow and that her body was obviously swelling. Along with Jenny's facial paralysis and confusion, viewers also noted this. In the midst of it all, her personal hygiene was lacking. It is plain to see that all of this is having a negative impact on her health. The original poster said, "I wonder if she had been on medication before moving to India and stopped taking it because she can't get it there." Jenny probably had some health problems while in the United States. Their medication was being taken by her. Her health deteriorated though, since she couldn't keep up with it in India. Someone said, "It's clear she's really down about her living situation. The way she slurs her words and her mouth looks droopy on one side." Someone another said, "I was wondering if she possibly had a stroke." The question of whether Jenny was struggling with something she couldn't discuss on the show was also raised by another viewer. Have you any thoughts? Leave a comment and tell us. Real reason why Sumit's family is not accepting Jenny. She embarrassed them. Jenny Slatten has been the unwavering support of 90 Day Fiance viewers from the very start. Through her boyfriend's ups and downs, they were there to cheer her on. However, the opposite side of the tale is now also being revealed to them. Looks like Sumit's family has also had their share of problems ever since their son married a woman 30 years her senior. Some reviewers were eager to point out the daring things Jenny did that would have made Sumit's family angry. Is that so? How did she behave? Please tell me what I'm missing. Jenny, did she do it again? This topic is pretty intense, so you should keep reading to find out more. The treatment of Jenny by Sumit's extended family is being observed by viewers of 90 Day Fiance. Some people still seem to have problems with the American native, even though his family may have embraced her for the benefit of their son's pleasure. One of Sumit's aunts brought up Jenny's age in a recent episode. Jenny, she informed the cameras, looked older than her and much more grandma-like. Also, there's more. In addition, Sumit's aunt pointed out that the marriage wasn't acceptable in their community and that Jenny's presence was a violation of their tradition. But Sumit was very forthright about how delighted he was with his wife. He elaborated by saying he was already married and that they were getting along famously in their shared apartment. His aunt, though, clearly wasn't believing his story. Fans of 90 Day Fiance have taken notice of a Reddit thread, which has sparked an intense discussion on Jenny and her relationship with Sumit. Some think Sumit's family might have a laundry list of grievances, and the OP didn't hold back in listing them. Jenny supposedly shirks her responsibilities around the house and doesn't do any cooking or cleaning, as stated in the thread. Some viewers may recall that Jenny made it plain that she would only ever make spaghetti for her in-laws. Even though Slatten had lived in India for over 7 years, the original poster noted that he still couldn't speak Hindi. He not only allowed Sumit to be lazy, but the thread also said that Jenny was broke. The goal of this was to highlight the perspective of Sumit's family. According to the OP, his family was also going through a lot. According to the Reddit thread, simply because Sumit married Jenny, a woman 30 years, his senior from a totally different society. Although there were some viewers who agreed with these claims, there are also some who disagree. Another commenter pointed out that Sumit wasn't doing much either. Despite being unemployed and broke, he went so far as to catfish Jenny. Therefore, the result is the same. Though imperfect individuals in their own right, their eyes reveal an undeniable love for one another whenever they're in a relationship. Have you any thoughts? Leave a comment and tell us. Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatin reveal brand new 90-day Fiance update after begging to return, amid signs they have money problems. Despite their time away from the limelight, Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatin are keeping their fingers crossed that the 90-day Fiance franchise will find a way to welcome them back. Meet on Facebook in 2012, Jenny moved to India to be with Sumit after they started dating. His parents wanted him to leave Jenny, so they disowned him for a while and refused to accept her. So Jenny and Sumit secretly tied the knot in August 2021 and have been residing in India ever since. There has been no response from the network to the couple's recent requests that they be recast for the show. Jenny is officially a daughter-in-law to Sumit's family. Enjoying the Christmas preparations in India, they were recently spotted at a nearby mall, where they seized the opportunity to share an updated 90-day Fiance installment. Recently, Sumit spent time with mom and dad and seemed elated. Following these joyful photos of Jenny and Sumit, Instagram user Grandmasals gushed over their adorableness and encouraged them to create a reality show of your own. To which Sumit replied, "Thank you very much, hopefully someday." Even though Sumit and Jenny haven't been hired back by the network, they still want to be on TV again in a spin-off. The most recent appearance by Sumit and Jenny was in the 2022 season of 90-Day Fiancé, Happily Ever After. At the season's final, the pair revealed that, despite some difficulties, they were happy together in India. The producers may have chosen not to contact the couple because they are now married and likely have no problems. Disputes between couples on 90-Day Fiancé often cause the show's signature dramatic and intense scenes. The happy marriage between Sumit and Jenny, nevertheless, may explain their relative obscurity over the past 2 years. Nonetheless, Sumit's latest reply to the fan suggests that he still hasn't totally written off the possibility of returning to 90-Day Fiancé. Their contracts with the network may still be active, since Sumit is interested in reuniting with Jenny. Though Big Ed Brown has been very forthright about his contract status, that is, that it expires in December 2024, and that he is available for reality TV work, Sumit and Jenny have remained tight-lipped about theirs. As a result, their comeback is possible in the future, provided that the plot is intriguing and full of surprises. Although it seemed improbable, Sumit and Jenny are holding out hope for a spin-off chance of their own. They appear to be still blissfully married in India, according to their social media updates, which might put off a lot of people. Some happy couples have gotten spin-offs before Sumit and Jenny, like Lauren and Alexei Brovanik, and David Tomborowski and Annie Suwon, so they shouldn't give up hope. Possible 90-Day Fiancé spin-off with Sumit and Jenny, if their relationship has recently progressed in a way that fans would find interesting. Sumit Singh shares big plans to turn his cafe business into a launchpad for his automotive car line. Sumit Singh has no intention of merely operating a cafe. He appears to have some more ambitious goals in the works. The celebrity from 90-Day Fiancé recently revealed his intentions to use the cafe as a springboard for his vehicle brand. Jenny and Sumit are having a really difficult time starting their own family cafe. The former, meanwhile, is rumored to have intentions to use the cafe as a base for his future business endeavor. He wants to build automobiles and give them Jenny's name. At every turn, the latter has been there to help her spouse. However, the extravagant business plan of the TLC duo has left viewers perplexed and labeled as wildly unrealistic. They questioned whether Sumit and Jenny could actually carry out their ideas. Are they being sincere about it? What was the response of the fans? Stars of 90-Day Fiancé Jenny Slatin and Sumit Singh discussed their cafe-running dreams on The Other Way Season 7. Family members of the former agreed to assist them in managing their company. However, his limited budget made it difficult for him to locate the ideal site. Sumit chose a location where they could draw in more clients. They lack an inlet or outlet for water though. The TLC star must also make do in a small space. Jenny and Sumit went to acquire some supplies for their company. They made the financial decision to purchase used equipment. Everything they want was available from Sumit's pal. He led him to his warehouse, where everything was kept, along with Jenny. It became apparent to the couple that the equipment was too large for their eatery. At a fair price, Sumit persuaded his friend to sell him all the equipment. Sumit Singh and Jenny Slatton take their cafe business very seriously. In order to get past their financial problems, they wanted to succeed. The new business plan of the TLC stars did not please the fans. However, it appears that Sumit opened this cafe for a very good cause. A Redditor recently revealed that he intended to utilize the cafe as a launchpad for his Black Sheep vehicle line. In the first 90 days, the OP said, "We hope the family cafe is so successful that we can begin production in the space next to us, a 13 square feet walkway." The star of 90 Day Fiance intended to use the area to establish an automotive manufacturing plant, where he could employ salespeople, designers, and auto builders. Additionally, Sumit intended to give the first model Jenny's name. It will have 2 entrances, room for 5 people, and the ability to push 10 human feet. According to the original poster, the Jenny will have 4 sides, no windows, and a roof made from recycled plastic bags from the family cafe. Sumit's idea didn't sound very feasible, and fans thought something wasn't quite right, which left them perplexed. Finally, the initial billboard made it clear that it was a prank, and Sumit hasn't disclosed any plans of that nature. As a result, the user may be mocking him for his strange schemes and ignorance of business. As one fan put it, "I rarely literally say lol, but this was hilarious. Fantastic work for Jenny and Sumit. Everything is possible," according to another user. No more today. What are you thinking about this gossip today? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel to get more updates like this. Thank you.